Welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. I'm Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about Magician Season 3 and just a little bit of the books, like we did with the previous podcast.
Yeah, if you don't know where to find it, you can find it on the SYFY channel. That's spelled SYFY. Even though those of us who are into science fiction kind of feel weird about the way that they spelled it.
It was spelt the right way. The right way. A while back. They just changed it to be cool.
Yeah. But Netflix now has the entirety of The Magicians Season 1 through Season 3. I know that Season 4 just started, I think 3 weeks ago. And so I think if you have SYFY on demand somewhere, you can probably catch those episodes there. Mm-hmm. We have not yet seen those. So
don't spoil it for us.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about those yet. Let's do our summary and review. My summary would be...
I was about to say there's a lot, so good luck.
Yes. Magic has been turned off, and the magicians are on a quest to turn magic back on using the 7 keys, which is very similar to the second book.
Oh, that was very nicely done. I don't know how else to summarize it without adding a bunch of things. Can I just take your summary? Because to be honest,
sure.
I don't know how else to summarize it because you pretty much encapsulated very quickly what the season is about. So I'm just going to steal yours.
All right.
Okay. Sorry, folks. I'm not going to be original this time around. But to be honest, I mean, what else would you add to it?
There's a lot of details that happen in between the words of what I said, but
yeah, but if I were to add on any extra details, we'd be here for a very long time.
Yeah. I liked season 3. I thought it was a lot better than season 2.
Agree.
I think even better than season 1, if I'm going to be completely honest. Mm-hmm. I did like season 3 a lot. I did, admittedly, I think the second book, which it follows a little bit more closely to, rather than the second season, where the second season kind of followed more the third book and had a little bit pieces of the second book in it. But I did like I like the third season a lot better, except for when Felicia Day showed up.
Yes.
I just have to say, I have a real problem with Felicia Day showing up in shows that are trying to get nerd cred. I think her nerd cred was kind of revoked when she stopped doing her internet show, The Guild.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't really get into The Guild myself, but I also agree. I felt like she was forced into it. Anyway, I'm now going into my review, I guess.
I didn't like her take on Penny either, or Poppy. Not Penny. There's too many P names.
Yep, that's okay.
Sorry, Penny.
I got your back, Miguel. Don't worry.
You're still my favorite on the television show.
Mm-hmm. Me too. My review, I too liked this season. In fact, there were many times when we were watching it, and I'm like, I really like this season. Like,
yeah.
Unprompted, like. And I'm not that type of person. So if I'm like saying, hey, I really like this season, then you know it's real, especially as I'm watching it. I also agree. I did not like the way that they interpreted Poppy. I loved Poppy in the books. And Poppy in the movie.
The show.
And in the show was just kind of, I don't know. I didn't like her at all. There were certain episodes that were great, like the episode with Quentin and with Elliot.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that episode, but that one gave us all the feels.
If you didn't cry during that episode, which if you watch the season, you probably know which episode we're talking about, then you have no heart.
When I was in college, I used to watch Scrubs like religiously. I think almost every male my age, male millennial that grew up around the same time, we all kind of were obsessed with Scrubs and with Zach Braff. But I would equate it to one of those episodes that like it really kind of dug into just you as a person, as time and time passing, and not and being persistent. And I just loved that episode. That by far, I think, transcended not just the season, but the entire series as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, and it gave you a lot to think about too. I mean, not just in what happened, but also kind of like time travel in a way as well too. Like, did his son really exist, or like what? Like is his? I don't know. Like the whole idea of his son now is kind of confusing. But I mean, that's kind of the beauty of the show.
Well, they can always bring him back.
That's true,
because they said it did happen. So
yeah.
Speaking of time and for lives, that's really what I want to focus on for what I want to talk about, especially for the books and for the themes that were kind of the threads that were pulled throughout the entire series of books, but also were finally picked up in the show. I felt like they kind of were left there. They were kind of in the background for the entire thing. You can go back and listen to our season 1 and season 2 podcast episodes on those books. But I really think this one really picks up on those themes that I really feel are essential to the entirety of the Magicians as a whole. And it's I feel, a new allegory for millennials, that it really picks up on how millennials encounter the world, and really how we kind of feel like we've been told what life is supposed to be. Do you kind of feel like, as a millennial and as a millennial woman, that you've been told oftentimes that this is what life is supposed to be? This is what you're supposed to be as an adult woman?
Yes and no. I'm kind of in a weird circumstance where, yes, I am a millennial, but my 2 older siblings are outside of, I mean, they're older than millennials. They're Gen X. Gen X. So I have this weird upbringing where my parents raised me more like a Gen Xer than a millennial. So, in some ways, yes. I mean, it was definitely like, you're going to go to college, then you're going to get a job, like broad ideas of millennials. I definitely felt that because we were all pushed into going to college. Like, you have to go to college in order to get a good job. Look at us now. We pretty much all have college degrees, and most of us are barely making it on our own. So, but anyway, I'm going to go on a tangent about that. But yes, to answer your question, yes.
Well, then what do you think were some of the more important things that people had for you, that they really said, these are the things that you need to have so that your life will be something?
First of all, I need to apologize for my sniffles. If you guys can hear that, I don't know if they're going to be too loud. But anyway, I guess it goes back to the only thing really was going back to that college. Like, it was very drilled into me to get that college degree. And now here I am outside of college for, years now. And I have barely paid down my balances on my student loans. And I make payments every single month. I still feel like I'm swimming in debt, and I almost feel like having that degree was a little bit of a waste. And I think that a lot of millennials might agree with me on that.
Well, for me, it was very much different. Growing up the way that I grew up in a very evangelical, far right-wing Christian church, and a lot of things are kind of were planned out for me. That you were destined for something special. You're meant to spread the gospel to the entire world, and all of this other stuff that really placed a lot of undue weight upon me. And I think this is something that is a common thread for a lot of millennials, is that we are often told, the things that we are supposed to have in life. We're supposed to have a good job. We're supposed to have a house, make a family, 2.5 kids, whatever a 0.5 kid is. I'm guessing a dog is a 0.5 kid?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So
definitely Luke is a half a child.
Half a child.
Agree. Yeah.
So, like the American dream, and it's more or less that our parents were trying to live out the fulfillment of their own dreams through us.
Oh, for sure.
Which, I don't know if they gave up sort of with our older siblings, with the Gen X siblings.
Oh, for sure. No, I'm just kidding. I love you guys. My sisters are probably like, what?
and so it made them try to focus more on the millennial, the younger siblings. But, I know that for me, it was my entire childhood was about trying to live up to these grandiose dreams and these grandiose ideas that were laid out for me that I was never able to obtain. And I mean, this I think you can see quite evident in I would call him the main character, although the show, he's kind of put in the back burner a little bit, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Quentin. Quentin, the books follow Quentin, and honestly, I did not like Quentin at all.
No, he was a whiny know-it-all.
Until the third book.
Yeah.
The third book was finally when he started to change, when he stopped with all of his just letting life happen to him. And he seems to have this like dark cloud hanging over him of, okay, I'm meant for something bigger. I love Fillory, so I've got to be about Fillory. Fillory's my thing.
Yeah, I need to be High King.
And he was like, when he got there, he was so disappointed in everything that he was just like, well, it's supposed to be bigger. It's supposed to be better. And I think that's what is the problem with millennials, is that we're told that we're supposed to have these so much bigger, better things that we end up having this dark cloud over our entire generation. I mean, maybe that's just me. Do you see this happening with millennials? This kind of dark cloud of, well, I was meant for something better. This is below me because it's, not as good as I was made to believe it was going to be.
Yes. Back to the college. I mean, we were told if you have a college degree, you're going to be able to at least earn, middle class wages, or like upper middle class wages for sure. I was told that was like a guarantee. You have a bachelor's in whatever, doesn't matter, you're going to get paid more. That's not the case anymore. Entry-level jobs, I mean, a lot of them do require a college degree, but you're still getting minimum wage.
Yeah. Well, if you go and watch the Saturday Night Live skit that was a few weeks ago called Millennial Millions,
that
kind of blew up. It's funny because it's true, and it's also sad because it's true.
Yeah.
That a college degree and $5 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Or you're probably already working there, so a college degree will get you a cup of Starbucks.
Yeah, it's really sad. But to be fair, I mean, the generations before us, that was the case. I mean, you went to college, you got a degree, you would get a good paying job, and that was fact. But because pretty much all of millennials were roped into getting a college degree, it's almost like we oversaturated the market.
Yep.
Again, not our fault because we were kids at the time, so we didn't know. And so we all graduated college, but there was no jobs for us.
And even though, national statistics showing that, we're good on jobs right now, it doesn't take into consideration that people are having to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. And even then, most of us are stuck doing something that we didn't think that we were going to, like our career field. We're doing jobs that, like, I have a degree in youth ministry. That means nothing. I'm in insurance now. I do a podcast. I write. Those are things that, like, are not in my field. Mm-hmm. But, like, I enjoy doing these other things now because, like Quentin, I think I needed that catalyst moment. I think that's probably why I didn't like Quentin so much, is because I was waiting for my real life to begin. And there's this beautiful Colin Hay song called "Waiting for My Real Life to Begin" that was used in Scrubs, and I fell in love with it because of that. But that's how I define I think millennials, is that we're just waiting for our real lives to begin. And for Quentin, when he finally realizes in the third book, oh, I'm really not waiting on anything. I am,
it's been happening.
It's just life, and I just gotta do something, or else it's just gonna pass me by. Mm-hmm. And that's really when I started to turn around on Quentin. That's when I started to like him a little bit better. That's why I liked him a little bit better in the third season here, is that near the end of the third season, when he makes a decision to stay and watch the
whatever creepy guy,
the monster.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you want to play?
Oh gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Sorry. Now, my mind is now thinking of all these possibilities. But again, no spoiler alerts for season 4, please.
Yeah.
Listeners.
So, I know that you've said this before, and I've asked you this question in a sort of different way. But was there anything that you were kind of waiting on, that you were waiting on for your life to be, your life?
Well, I think, besides college, I think another thing that was kind of pushed upon me was the idea of having a family young. Like, almost everybody in my family got married young, had children young, and I'm talking like early 20s. And, I did get married young compared to most of my peers. I got married when I was 21, so I could still drink at my wedding. But we didn't have, kids right away. And at first we did purposely wait, a little bit until we were more settled. And that was a conscious decision on our part initially, because we wanted to make sure that we were actually financially ready to have kids. But because of that, I did have a lot of family feedback going, well, why isn't there a baby? Like, what's going on? Like, are you guys doing okay? Like, what's wrong with you, basically?
Yeah.
About not having a kid. Which I did want to have a kid, of course. It's just that, I wanted to wait a little bit. But I do think that we had our son later in my life than what I initially anticipated. But it's not really for any fault of anybody's. I mean, we had some fertility issues and that kind of stuff. But yeah. I think that's the closest thing that I can come to, is I was kind of waiting for me to really have my life begin as a mom, which I've come to realize was a patriarchal view pushed upon me, because I'm not really a woman unless I'm a mom. But anyway, so I can go off on another tangent.
Yeah. Well, what I see in The Magicians, like I said, is a new allegory for millennials. Is I see this kind of shift in our storytelling, especially over the recent decade of the 2010s. We really see this shift in dynamics of the way that we tell our stories. I mean, again, is it just me, or do you see this shift happening in our stories and the way that we tell our stories now?
Can you be a little bit more specific?
In that we tell them differently than we have in previous decades. That it's a complete shift of completely blurred lines, really, of what we really tell stories about. In that there may not be a centralized protagonist or antagonist. that it's all sort of people going towards sort of the same ideals, but probably in radically different ways.
Oh, yeah. Like, for example, Black Panther is a good example of, like, really the goal between the antagonist and the protagonist. That, you know, they had some things in common in terms of what they wanted to achieve, but they were just going around very differently in terms of what they wanted to do.
If you weren't such a jerk, we'd be friends.
Basically. Same with Thanos in the Marvel universe. Yes, he has a very good point of we have very limited resources in our universe, especially those of us who haven't traveled outside of our planet very far, that we need to really look at that and decide what we have to do in order to make sure that we don't run out of the resources that we have. Do I think we need to kill half the life forms on our planet in order to achieve that goal? Heck no.
He could have just snapped his fingers and made everything double.
I know, exactly. But he didn't. So, yes, his goal in mind is something that, yes, I agree that we need to look at. We have finite resources. Now, we need to think about what we got to do in order to stretch those resources, or maybe look at different resources that we haven't in the past. But to kill off half the people, no. So
there was something that obviously we'll talk about it in our episode on The Good Place for this season, but that was brought up in The Good Place, which, by the way, Good Place is by far one of the most intelligent and best sitcoms that I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure we've said this before, but definitely go watch it.
And that Michael, one of the characters, brings up about why nobody has gotten into the good place for over 500 years was that life has just become so complicated that it's difficult to be good or bad because everything you do is probably bad.
Yeah. Or even the good things that you do, or even the things that you don't necessarily have a good or bad. You know, like, for example, drinking a cup of coffee. Could be good or it could be bad.
I really don't want to know about that, because I know that a lot of coffee practices, one, they're horrible for the environment. Two, they're horrible. They treat their workers horribly. And like, there's just so much that I don't want to know about because I like coffee. And honestly, we have a toddler. We can't survive without coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's just an example of, like, you wouldn't think that drinking coffee would be a good or bad decision. But there's a lot of stuff you got to think about. There's actually a College Humor. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a video about that where they're sitting and they're like, oh, like, we have a free day off. Let's think about what we want to do. And every time somebody brings up a scenario of, like, oh, let's go to the beach. And they're like, oh, no, we can't, because like, we'll litter or whatever. And so somebody offers another activity, and then somebody else decides, like, oh, wait, no, we can't do that because of XYZ. So that's a good example of, with The Good Place, it doesn't matter what you do, there's probably some kind of negativity in the background that's associated with it.
Well, I think that for millennials, that's really coming upon that area of waiting for our real lives to begin, is because we wanted the clear-cut good or bad path.
Yep.
And there's no such thing anymore. And I think this is beautifully displayed in The Magicians. And I know I'm just talking meta about the entire thing of The Magicians, but this, I think, really was encapsulated in season 3. I think this is where Elliot and Quentin both had their big kind of, okay, I need to start taking action moments, and their character arcs really came to fruition. And not just them, but Margo. Margo was just, fantastic in that.
Oh, yes. Me love some Margo. A lot. In fact, I would actually have to say that Alice, she was probably one of the few people that didn't really have a very good character arc this season.
I think her character arc really was season 2 and season 1.
Yeah.
Because things did happen to her, and she still took action, even though things happened to her.
Mm-hmm. But she wasn't as interesting as Miss Margo.
Yes.
Yes. So can we just say congratulations to Margo for being the head king?
High King.
High King. Yes, thank you. Man, I loved her this season, like, a lot. She's definitely, like, hashtag boss babe, boss goals, for sure. I would have to say she's definitely the boss babe in the most truest sense. Like, not only does she take charge and get stuff done, but she does it with elegance and grace and looking good all at the same time. Can I say those eye patches were pretty amazing?
She pulled it off.
She pulled it off. She did. She's going to be very weird having her have her eye back for next season. But anyway, I really wanted to talk about Margo because she is one of the very few female characters out there right now that is, I feel like, a very good role model. Like, yeah, she curses a lot. But she definitely has shown that she's not as selfish as a lot of people think that she is.
When she was Janet in the books, Janet was pretty selfish and very about herself. But I would agree that Margo, time and time again, especially when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the very nitty gritty of it, that she steps it up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, of course, she did make some mistakes, but I'm going to talk about that later. The one thing that I really love about her is near the end of the season, like obviously she defends herself with a lot of fierce force. But she's also defending her people, too, with that same fierce force that she would defend herself with, which I think is a very unique characteristic. There's not too many leaders out there right now in the real world who would be able to say that they can do the same thing, that they would defend their people as hard and as fierce as they defend themselves.
Yeah.
Especially here in the United States.
No, because so many of our politicians are wanting to be reelected. Yeah. And so they always toe the line of what's acceptable, and they pander to their bases. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing that I think is kind of helpful with Margo is that at the beginning of at the beginning of the series, she was the High Queen, and, High Queen is the High Queen. Mm-hmm. That's it. But of course, we have the elections later on in the series where stakes are a little bit higher. But one thing that I also liked about her character arc this season is she owns up to her mistakes.
Yeah.
And she apologizes for them. She tries to fix them to the best of her ability. She's not always successful, but at least she apologizes and she learns from it.
Well, I also think that she does it without a major catalyst. Losing an eye can be a major catalyst, but the major catalyst that happened in the books was, she was raped. Mm-hmm. It was bad. Like that whole, when she's recounting the entire thing to Elliot, it's horrible. And it didn't happen in this timeline, if they're going with the different timelines approach to it. I think this is a much better, character for her is that she realized it without a catalyst, which I think is not just that it's more admirable. I guess some people may think it's more admirable, but that I think it's more mature to be able to realize it without needing the catalyst.
Exactly. Like she's realizing it without there necessarily being a reason for her, to push her in that direction.
Exactly.
She just realized it on herself. By
on
herself.
her own, yeah.
Sorry, like I said, I'm still a little sick, so my words are a little funny right now. But, some of the small acts of kindness that she does throughout the season 2 come back to help her in a very big way. Like the fact that she was talking to the bear, just like nonchalant of like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like you can, be with whoever you want to be, I guess. No harm, no foul to me. Doesn't matter to me, whatever. Which then turns into her being elected High King. I mean, that was definitely not an outcome that she really wanted. You know what I mean?
Well, she did
not necessarily want, but I mean, because she did she was a little upset with Elliot.
Yeah.
For putting on the election. But also kudos to Elliot for just graciously okay. Like you won. It's a little shocking, but
yeah.
He did it with such grace, really, in the circumstance that was given to him. And so, but I also think that Elliot, as you said earlier, learned and grew a lot this season. Mm-hmm. Man, it was just so good. It was just such a good season. Anyway, back to my questions now to try to add in the conversation part to our honest conversations. So I know this is going to get a little real world here, but I think it's kind of important. So which female politician do you think most aligns with Margo's personality or Margo's perseverance, maybe?
You asked me this yesterday, and I gave you an answer, and I think I'm going to stick with that answer because I really can't think of anybody else. I would go with the AOC. I'm going to call her AOC. Because
all the cool people.
Alexandra. I can't even remember what the O is. Something Cortez. That's all I remember.
That's okay.
So Ortasio. I think so. I think it's Ortasio. No matter what what people have been throwing at her, she's just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, she's just batting it away. She's like, all right.
Yeah, that was me. I was in that silly video. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Why are you? That's all right.
Yeah, that was from my college.
Exactly.
Okay.
I agree with you, but why do you specifically think so?
I think primarily because of that is that, even if people throw these mud balls at her, she's just like, meh, okay, rolls with the punches.
Yeah.
And she deals with her party well. She deals with the Democratic Party very well. And she makes her points very clear and concise, which I think is a fantastic thing. Yep. That even her opponents are like, well, her points, while they make a lot of sense, they're scary because they make a lot of sense.
I also think, too, that they're very aligned, because I agree with you, by the way. I also think that they're aligned because their opponents underestimate them as well, too.
Yeah.
Especially with politicians being young, add on to the fact that she is considered very new in the political environment, and she also, of course, is a woman of color. That's kind of all stacked against her, which very much aligns with Margo. But people underestimate their abilities, and both ladies are able to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Yes, they listen to people's concerns, but they're like, but actually I know my stuff, So I really agree with you in that. Do you think that we need more women like Margo in corporate America? Why or why not?
I would say yes and no, but as a man, I think that my views are skewed, so I probably am the worst person to ask that question.
Yeah. I think that, maybe if Margo was in the 90s, I don't think she would get very far. But being in today's atmosphere, I do think that there is now a place for women who are, I hate the word bossy. You know what I mean? She's just more forward with what she wants and her ideas, and she has a plan, and women are still seen as very intimidating if they have those features. In fact, people have told me that I'm very intimidating, which is very weird. But when I have an idea, though, and I think it's a good idea, like, I stand behind it and I try to convince people of that idea. And some people just find it as being pushy. Whereas if she were a man, it would not be seen as being bossy. It would be seen as being very aggressive, but in a good way. You know what I mean? Assertive, yeah. Being very assertive.
Yeah, and she's very confident. She's very, I guess I'm kind of mixing the picture with season 1 Margo and season 2 Margo, where she was more about going on vacation and...
Oh, no, I'm talking season 3 Margo.
Yeah, season 3 Margo.
This is where I fell in love with Margo, is the season 3 Margo.
Yeah. Where, she saves the ship from being ship raped.
I know.
She saves, and then she cares about people as people.
Heck, she even gave the fairies who tormented her land and citizenship. Mm-hmm. She saw them as lost souls and a marginalized group who, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances and hardships, were just trying to do what they needed to do to survive. And so she forgave them and, decided to help them out. So, well, I don't know if she forgave them, but she decided to help them out. You know what I mean? Which is very big of her. Very big of her. I don't know of anybody else who'd be able to do that in this series. Maybe Quentin. Maybe. After
he's done whining about how things are always hard for him.
Yep. Last but not least, in terms of important questions, when do you think that we're going to see her ice axes?
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to bring in that storyline. I really don't know if they're going to, because they've already discussed some of the other kingdoms, and they didn't bring in the deserts to the south, so I don't know that they're going to.
Yeah. Anyway, I know that's kind of a spoiler alert for the books if you guys haven't read them yet, but she gets ice axes in a very badass, very sad way.
Yes.
And I want to see her have those axes. So, end of story.
All right. So, we're going to continue our conversations with a lot of different things that we've got coming up. We've got the OA, of course. So, we're going to be talking about episode 3 of season 1. Part 1. So make sure to watch it again for the first time, or watch it for the first time. We'll be talking about Maniac in 2 weeks, the limited series on Netflix. And we've got a lot of great stuff coming up. So tell them where to find us. Oh, yes. I forgot about that part. Sorry, guys. I'm really sick. So you can find us on social media. We're on Instagram at Patron Saints of Pop Culture. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at Real Honest Faith. If you wanted to, you can always venture on to our website, thehonestfaith.com, and you can reply back to any one of our posts. You can send us a private message if you want. You can send us an email, whatever you'd like to do. Just make sure that you, help join the conversation, I guess. Yeah, so just to let you know, Facebook will be changing soon. We will be at Patron Saints of Pop Culture on Facebook soon. It's probably going to happen this week by Tuesday, so if you search for us at Real Honest Faith and you don't find us, it's because we've changed to Patron Saints of Pop Culture on Facebook. Do you think we'll change Twitter too? Not yet, only because that would require opening a new Twitter account. So, oh, gotcha. Yeah. And so that's like starting fresh with a new Twitter account is always not very easy. We invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.
Favor.